In the hushed corridors of Forrester Creations, where polished marble floors echo the soft click of stilettos and whispered confidences carry the weight of empires built on couture and ambition, Steffi Forrester had become a specter of her former self, her radiant confidence dimmed by a secret she bore alone. For months, she had brushed off the dizzying spells that seized her without warning. Moments of vertigo in the boardroom, cold sweats in the design studio, brief lapses of vision that left her clutching the arm of a mannequin or collapsing into Finn's arms in the dead of night. To the world, she attributed these fainting episodes to stress and exhaustion, a CEO burning the candle at both ends to preserve the legacy of her family's fashion dynasty. But beneath her composed exterior, Steffi harbored a verdict more devastating than any corporate takeover. After a battery of MRIs and a consultation with a renowned neurosurgeon, she had learned she was living on borrowed time. The diagnosis was mercilessly clear: a malignant brain tumor, aggressive and inoperable, with a prognosis measured not in years, but in fleeting months. Determined to seize control of what little time remained, Steffi retreated into a private world of legal documents and whispered conversations with trusted advisors. Under the guise of an impromptu trip to Europe, she met with her family's attorneys in a discreet villa tucked away from prying eyes. There, she drafted an amendment to her will and corporate bylaws that would reshape the future of Forrester Creations long after her absence. With trembling hands, she replaced her own name as CEO with Ridge's protege, an up-and-coming designer known for bold innovation and ruthless efficiency. Ensuring that her legacy of uncompromising elegance would endure under capable leadership. She appointed guardians for her children, set aside trust funds for charity foundations bearing the Forrester name, and codified instructions for a memorial line entitled Steffi's Grace to debut at Fashion Week, all without alerting a single soul beyond her legal team. Through it all, she maintained a facade of health, smiling through photo ops and board meetings, offering light-hearted banter with clients and delivering stirring keynote addresses that hid the ache in her skull and the fear in her heart. Meanwhile, Finn confronted the unsettling undercurrent of their life together. He watched her eyes cloud over during presentations, noted the way she paused when the strain became too great, and sensed the distance in her late-night texts as she retreated into silence rather than share her dread. Proud of her strength, he hesitated to press for the truth. He believed in her resilience, in her capacity to overcome any obstacle. Yet as her symptoms worsened, severe headaches that left her weeping into his coat sleeve, moments of disorientation so profound she struggled to recognize him, his medical instincts screamed for answers, for scans and treatments that might buy them more time. Steffi deflected every concern with practiced grace, promising it was nothing more than an infection or a sinus issue, insisting she could handle it on her own. She refused to let him see the tremor in her hand as she signed those documents or the sorrow in her voice when she spoke of designs she might never complete. The secret weighed on her like a stone, a constant companion in every decision she made. She crafted speeches from hospital beds, attended gala fundraisers with growth covering the right side of her skull, and laughed at parties while her mind reeled with the knowledge of her mortality. Each moment with Finn and their children became more precious and more agonizing as she watched joy flicker in their eyes, knowing it would soon be eclipsed by grief. The board of directors praised her unwavering dedication, Ridge commended her leadership, even Brooke expressed admiration for her indefatigable spirit, yet none could penetrate the fortress of silence she had erected around her suffering. Then the unthinkable happened. Finn, alerted by a nurse who recognized the severity of Steffi's pallor, intercepted her one evening as she prepared to leave for a gala. He watched her falter at the front door, her chin trembling, a sheen of perspiration on her brow, and realized he could no longer stand by as an observer. Gently, he guided her back inside, guiding her to the couch and insisting on the truth. Steffi's defenses cracked for an instant, her eyes brimming with tears as she whispered fragments of her secret. Mention of MRIs and specialists, of whispered consultations in foreign boardrooms, of the will she would never sign in his presence. Finn's face drained of color, rage and heartbreak warred in his gaze as he comprehended the enormity of her deception. He felt betrayed not by infidelity, but by the theft of time, the precious hours and days he had assumed were theirs to share, now tainted by the lie she had perpetuated to spare him pain. In the hollow that opened between them, Finn's professional composure dissolved. He confronted her with anguish, demanding to know why she had denied him the chance to fight alongside her. "We're partners," he said, voice cracking, tears shining in his eyes. "Every choice, good or bad, you make, we face together. You robbed me of my right to stand by you, to hold your hand through the darkest nights." Steffi, her shoulders slumped beneath the weight of her illness and her guilt, could only murmur that she had wanted to spare him, to protect him from the sorrow that would come, believing it more merciful to bear the burden alone. But as Finn paced the apartment, fingers drifting through his hair in frustration, he realized that the greatest betrayal was not her withholding of the truth, but the wall it had erected between their hearts. Determined to reclaim their final months together, Finn vowed to upend Steffi's secret plans. He enlisted the support of her attorneys and the board, demanding transparency in corporate governance, lest her dying wishes be enacted without his knowledge or input. He pressed for medical consultations and second opinions, determined to explore every conceivable avenue for treatment, experimental therapies, clinical trials, even alternative medicine. No matter how remote the chance of prolonging her life. For the first time in weeks, Steffi felt hope flicker against the void, even as she feared that by revealing herself so completely she risked unraveling the delicate peace she had so carefully maintained. Word of Steffi's condition leaked through the grapevine of Port Charles's elite, sparking a tidal wave of sympathy and speculation. Tabloids buzzed with speculation about her health. Fashion commentators praised her courage in facing adversity. Rivals offered condolences tinged with opportunism. Yet beneath the public display of support lay questions of power and succession. Corporate vultures circled the Forbes lists. Analysts questioned the stability of Forrester Creations without its indomitable CEO, and opportunistic board members whispered of contingency plans, ready to push for a permanent replacement if Steffi's prognosis proved accurate. Finn, aware of how swiftly alliances could shift in the shadow of a dying leader, fought not only for Steffi's health, but for her legacy, to ensure that the company she loved would not be stripped from her hands in her final days. As Steffi lay in the dim glow of her bedroom, the moonlight painting silver lines across the quilt, she and Finn mapped out a new strategy. He would spearhead a campaign to bolster investor confidence by highlighting her ongoing involvement in design projects. He would leverage his medical credibility to counter any rumors of incapacitation, and together they would host a benefit gala to raise funds for brain tumor research, a gesture both altruistic and shrewd, uniting her personal battle with a broader cause that would cement her role as a leader in life and legacy. Each plan they crafted was tinged with the bittersweet knowledge that time was slipping through their fingers like sand. Each embrace carried the weight of impending loss. In the final act of her secret war against both disease and destiny, Steffi stood before a courtroom filled with board members and attorneys, her face framed by the halo of a surgical scar she no longer bothered to conceal. With Finn's hand in hers, she announced a revised succession plan. one that named not her protege but Finn himself as her interim successor, a testament to the partnership they had forged in love and crisis. The declaration stunned the board into silence. Ridge's eyes brimmed with reluctant approval. Brooke watched with a mixture of pride and sorrow as Steffi, her voice clear despite fragility, spoke of trust, resilience, and the power of unity in the face of mortality. Later that night, as they returned home, Finn raised a toast with 2 crystal flutes of champagne, an echo of happier celebrations, his hand trembling as it met Steffi's. To make every moment count, he whispered, and Steffi smiled through tears, her heart full of love and fear and an unyielding determination to write her own final chapter on her terms. Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars, and in their embrace, time stretched and contracted, fragile as glass yet incandescent with possibility. And though the months ahead would test them beyond measure, Steffi and Finn faced the future not as victim and spectator, but as fierce allies, bound by truth at last and ready to confront whatever the world would bring in the precious days that remained. Hope Logan had flown into Milan under the glittering promise of a fashion partnership, her heart buoyed by the prospect of reuniting with beloved colleagues and friends in the birthplace of haute couture. But the city's ancient cobblestones and grand piazzas, which had once inspired her with their timeless beauty, now echoed with terror as she found herself seized from her hotel's private courtyard in the dead of night. A figure emerged from the shadows. A lone man whose voice quivered with devotion and desperation as he blindfolded her and dragged her into the trunk of a waiting car. He delivered her to a secluded villa perched on the outskirts of the city, its stone walls cold and unyielding, its windows shuttered against intruders. There, in a room stripped of all but a simple cot and a single barred window, Hope's worst nightmare unfolded. She was held captive by a man claiming to have loved her for years, convinced that only by isolating her from the world could he ensure she would finally return his affections. Back in Los Angeles, the news of Hope's disappearance shattered Liam Spencer's life like a gale-force wind. He had barely had time to unpack his suitcase from his own trip abroad when a frantic call from Steffi, her voice taut with fear, warned him that Hope had vanished without a trace. Panic-stricken, Liam dropped everything, his mind racing through every possible scenario, but none more terrifying than the notion of Hope alone and helpless halfway across the globe. He contacted the authorities, but jurisdictional bureaucracy moved at a crawl compared to the urgency ripping at his soul. Meanwhile, Thomas Forrester, whose complicated history with Hope had once been fueled by jealousy and rivalry, received his own distressing summons. The Forrester family had learned of the abduction and believed that Thomas's familiarity with Hope's travel plans and Milan contacts might prove invaluable. Pride and old wounds warred within Thomas, but when his grandmother shared her belief that only by setting aside past grievances could they hope to bring Hope home, Thomas's resolve hardened. He reached out to Liam, and though each man's voice carried the weight of bitter memories, of hope caught between them, of promises broken and hearts bruised, they recognized that this crisis demanded unity above all. Within hours, Liam and Thomas touched down in Milan, their reunion fraught with tension yet underscored by mutual desperation. They combed through Hope's last known movements, visiting the hotel staff who had seen her escorted to a private dinner, reviewing CCTV footage that showed a figure in dark clothing trailing her steps, and tracing the kidnapper's car through grainy traffic cameras. Each clue drew them deeper into a labyrinth of dead ends until a retired detective, moved by Hope's plight after a chance encounter with Brooke's impassioned pleas, directed them to an abandoned road leading into the hills. There, hidden by olive groves and rusting gates, stood the villa where Hope languished. Liam's hands trembled as he raced up the gravel drive, Thomas close behind, their footsteps muffled by the swirling leaves. At the villa's entrance, a lone guard slumped against the archway, his posture slack with disinterest. Within moments, Liam and Thomas subdued him with whispers of mercy and warnings of dire consequences if he raised an alarm. Inside, the air was thick with must and fear. Thomas's breath caught when he recognized Hope's shawl draped over a chair in the dim hallway. Liam's heart pounded so fiercely he feared Hope might hear it from her cell. They followed the sound of her soft sobs to a door bolted from the outside. Liam's shoulder crashed against the wood splintering, as Thomas worked the lock with a hairpin borrowed from Hope's own collection. How fitting, he thought bitterly, that a token of past affections would now free her from peril. The door gave way, and they found Hope curled on the cot, tears staining her cheeks, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by exhaustion. Liam knelt beside her, pressing his hand to hers as Thomas pinned the kidnapper, who had just stumbled into the corridor, against the wall. The man's confession spilled out in frantic gasps. He had watched Hope from afar, collecting scraps of her public life until his obsession coalesced into this desperate act. He thought that by demonstrating his power over her freedom, he could win her love, an unhinged logic that underscored the depths of his madness. Though relieved to have Hope back in their arms, Liam and Thomas knew the danger was far from over. They bound the kidnapper and dragged him into the open air, summoning local authorities with Liam's phone as Thomas stayed by Hope's side, brushing snow-white strands of hair from her face. As the police led the madman away, cameras from nearby villas captured the scene, Liam cradling Hope in his arms, Thomas standing guard like an unlikely guardian angel. The villa's heavy doors swung shut behind the officers, leaving the trio on the olive-strewn driveway beneath a sky bruised by dusk. It was there, in that breathless moment of salvation and lingering dread, that Hope's secret slipped free of her lips. She was pregnant. The words trembled from her mouth, soft, fearful, precious. Yet the impact struck Liam and Thomas like thunder. Silence stretched between them, taut as drawn wire. Liam's face went pale, his hands flying to his mouth as he scanned Hope's eyes for confirmation. Thomas's jaw clenched, shock colliding with a buried hope he had long since tried to bury. Hope pressed a trembling palm against her abdomen, each breath shallow with emotion. She confessed that she had discovered the pregnancy the week before, that Finn's absence during her departure to Milan had left her uncertain how to share the news, and that the stress of her confidential meetings with designers had muddled her resolve to tell either man. The revelation rippled through them all. Liam's love for Hope was boundless, but Thomas had once dreamed of a future with her in which a child could have bound them forever. Now, confronted by the reality of a life growing within Hope, neither could claim certainty of paternity. Though dawn was breaking, its pale light felt cold against their shock. Liam pressed a hand to Hope's cheek, tears glistening in his eyes as he whispered apologies for his absence, pledges of devotion, and desperate questions of whether this child could possibly be his. Thomas, his emotions a jagged swirl of regret and yearning, offered a vow of support, promising that no matter the result of a paternity test, he would stand by them both, though the promise cut him more deeply than any betrayal could. Hope, caught between two men whose love for her shone in their voices, felt the world shift beneath her feet. Her voice, though steady, trembled with the weight of her choice. She asked them both to accompany her back to Los Angeles, to confront the truth together, and to share in whatever decision lay ahead for their child. As they boarded the private jet, its engines roaring like the echo of their tumultuous emotions, Hope nestled between Liam and Thomas, her hand resting on her swelling belly. Each man stared out at the runway, grappling with the knowledge that the days ahead would test their bonds, their capacity for forgiveness, and their understanding of love itself. In that charged silence, They realized that Hope's kidnapping had done more than threaten her life. It had unveiled a secret that would forever alter the course of their intertwined destinies. When the jet lifted into the sky, the villa and its horrors faded behind them, but the questions remained vivid. Who would be the father of Hope's child? Could friendship survive this ultimate test of fidelity? And as Hope closed her eyes to rest, her mind raced with possibilities of motherhood, of reconciliation, and of the fragile new life she carried, which demanded clarity and truth in equal measure. In the smoke-thick cabin, beneath the hum of engines and the lifeline of beaded monitors, the three of them faced an uncertain future, bound together by love and the promise of a child whose paternity might change everything they thought they knew about each other and about themselves.
Oh.